3 years together, and I never thought I'd face the choice between keeping my pride or keeping her. Then that night, close to 11 p.m., she walked in. A strange perfume lingered in the air, her collar slightly open, revealing a round purple mark, like another man's signature on the woman I love. I stood there, one hand gripping my keys, the other holding my phone. One call, and I could know the whole truth within 24 hours. But if I was wrong, I'd lose her forever. We lived in a small apartment in the heart of Austin, Texas. For 3 years, I thought I knew every breath, every habit Jessica had. But lately, late nights at the office, phone always face down, her smile fading, and that night, that image felt like a cold blade, pressing into my chest. What should I do? Stay silent to protect what we have, or face the truth no matter how cruel it is? Think about it. If it were you, what would you do? Stay or walk away? Jessica and I weren't just dating. We had built a life together. Saturday mornings meant coffee from the same corner cafe on Congress Avenue. Evenings meant cooking dinner side by side, arguing playfully over how much spice belonged in the chili. We had inside jokes, shared playlists, and a quiet rhythm that felt like home. But over the past few months, that rhythm started to falter. The late nights came first, once or twice a month at the beginning, then once or twice a week. Deadlines, she'd say, tossing her bag onto the couch. Budget meetings with Paula from finance, or client calls running late. At first I believed her. I wanted to believe her. Austin's downtown office culture is brutal, and Jessica was ambitious. But the changes didn't stop there. She used to leave her phone on the coffee table without a second thought. Now it was always within reach. Screen down, notifications off, like it was guarding state secrets. And the smile I'd fallen for? It was fading, replaced by something distant, guarded. I told myself it was stress. But deep down, a whisper was starting to form, one I didn't want to hear. What if it wasn't just work? The first real crack showed up on a Wednesday night. Jessica texted me around 6, saying she had to stay late to finish a big project. I didn't think much of it, until the next day, when I ran into Mark, one of her coworkers. We trade memes sometimes, so I slid it casually into conversation. "How's that project you guys were working on?" I asked. Mark frowned. "That? We wrapped it up last week. Total nightmare, glad it's over." I felt my stomach tighten. Maybe he got the dates wrong. Maybe I did. I let it go. Or at least I tried to. But that night when Jessica walked in, I tested the waters. "How's the project?" I asked, keeping my tone light. She hesitated, just for a split second, before mumbling something about it still going, and then suddenly changing the subject. "Did you remember to get oat milk?" Oat milk, right. As if that mattered more than the gnawing suspicion in my chest. It wasn't proof. Not yet. But the whisper in my head was growing louder. Something didn't add up. It wasn't just the late nights anymore. The little pieces of us started disappearing, one by one. Saturday pizza nights? Gone. We used to grab a large pepperoni from that old brick oven place on South Lamar, then collapse on the couch halfway through a Netflix marathon. Now, Saturdays were just quiet. She'd claim she was too tired or that she had work to catch up on. Even when she was home, she wasn't really there. We'd sit side by side, the TV playing in the background, but the space between us felt like a mile. She didn't reach for my hand. She didn't laugh at my dumb jokes. She didn't fall asleep against my shoulder like she used to. And the phone, always the phone. It might as well have been glued to her palm. Face down, silent, like if I even glanced at it, I'd trip some hidden alarm. I told myself I was imagining it. That relationships go through phases. That she was just stressed. But then came the night she walked in with something on her neck. Something I couldn't ignore. It was a Thursday. She came through the door around 10:45 p.m., dropping her bag like it had personally wronged her. I was halfway to saying hello when I saw it, just above her collarbone. A faint purplish circle, small, perfectly round. The kind of mark you don't get from bumping into furniture. "What's that on your neck, Jess?" I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. She didn't even blink. "Oh, that? Cabinet at work." I was cleaning the storage closet, leaned down, and bam, caught the corner. A cabinet, at neck height, in a closet. Right. I stared at her, trying to read her face. She busied herself with her coat, moving quickly toward the bedroom, talking about how exhausted she was. But I couldn't stop picturing it, that mark. The more I thought about it, the more it looked like someone had signed their name on her skin in a language I didn't want to understand. For the first time, I felt the ground under us shift, and I wasn't sure it would hold. I was this close to calling her out right then and there, lips parted, breath drawn, ready to let the words fly. But I stopped myself, because here's the thing, I didn't have proof. Just a bruise, some late nights, and a phone she guarded like it held nuclear codes. If I accused her now and I was wrong, I'd be the paranoid, jealous boyfriend, the kind of guy women warn each other about. So instead, I swallowed it, let her disappear into the bathroom with the speed of someone dodging a lie detector test. I sat there on the couch, the springs creaking under me, staring at the wall like it might give me answers. It didn't. But my mind was already running the math, the missed dinners, the quiet nights, the sudden bursts of overtime, that mark on her neck. I wasn't just guessing anymore. I was connecting dots, and the picture that was forming, it wasn't one I wanted to see. The next few days were torture. Every time Jessica said she'd be late, I felt my chest tighten. I'd picture her in some dimly lit bar or cheap motel, laughing at jokes that weren't mine, smiling in ways she hadn't smiled at me in months. I tried distracting myself, hitting the gym, grabbing beers with Chris and Mike, but it was like trying to ignore a fire alarm. That buzzing suspicion never stopped. Then, one night, she mentioned she might be late again. "Big client presentation tomorrow," she said, eyes fixed on her phone, thumbs flying over the screen. Something in me snapped. Not loudly, not with shouting or slammed doors. Just a quiet, cold click inside my head. I realized I couldn't keep living in this limbo, half believing her, half waiting for the other shoe to drop. If she was lying, I needed to know. If she wasn't, I needed to stop torturing myself. That's when I made the call. Not to her. To someone who could tell me the truth without the drama. I found him through a friend of a friend. The kind of contact you don't Google. You just get a first name and a number. His name was Frank Dawson, former cop, now a private investigator in Austin. We met at a quiet cafe off I-35, the kind of place where the background noise is just enough to cover your words. Frank looked exactly like you'd imagine. Weathered face, dark blazer even in the Texas heat, and eyes that didn't miss a thing. I laid it all out for him. The late nights, the phone that never left her hand, the cabinet bruise, and one more detail. The name Ethan Brooks, her so-called work best friend, the guy who kept popping up in her stories. Frank listened without interrupting, just nodding occasionally, jotting notes in a small leather pad. "We'll get to the truth," he said finally. His voice was calm, steady, like he'd said those words 100 times before. Walking back to my truck, I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks. Not hope, just clarity. Frank started right away. He had Jessica's work schedule, the nights she claimed she'd be staying late, and even the usual routes she drove home. My job now was to wait, which turned out to be harder than I thought. Every evening felt like a coin toss. Was she really at the office, or somewhere else entirely? I tried not to obsess, but the silence in our apartment made it impossible. She'd breeze in hours after dark, toss me a quick, long day, and vanish into the shower. No warmth, no lingering conversation. I'd lie awake listening to the water run, wondering if she was washing off more than just the day. Frank texted occasionally, short to the point. Saw her leave work. Following. No movement yet. Those little pings made my pulse spike every time. After a week of nothing concrete, I started to wonder if I was chasing shadows. Then, one Friday night, the text came in at 9:12 p.m., leaving office, heading south. You'll want to see this. Frank's update came with a second message, a live photo ping. I tapped it, and my stomach knotted instantly. Jessica's car, pulling into a motel parking lot off the frontage road. Not a downtown hotel, not someplace you'd take a client. This was the kind of place with a flickering neon sign and a vending machine that probably sold bad coffee and worse decisions. Frank's next text hit harder. She's not alone. A few seconds later, another photo. Ethan Brooks, standing beside her car, holding the door for her. His hand brushed her back like it belonged there. They walked toward the entrance together. No rush, no hesitation. I stared at the image until my phone dimmed. It was like looking at a still frame from a movie I never agreed to star in. Frank didn't follow them inside. No need, he said. The timestamp, the location, the company. It told the story. I didn't respond right away. My hands were clenched so tight my knuckles ached. One night, one photo, and I already knew. And this wasn't going to be a misunderstanding. Frank didn't stop with one night. Over the next 2 weeks, he tracked her movements like clockwork. Same pattern, different days. Jessica would leave the office at dusk, sometimes with Ethan, sometimes alone, but always ending up in the same kind of place. Not even loyal to one motel. They hopped around, like the anonymity of a new room somehow erased what they were doing. One was just off Riverside Drive, another tucked behind a gas station off Ben White Boulevard. Each one looked like a scene from a bad crime drama. Peeling paint, buzzing signs, a couple of cars scattered in the lot. Frank sent photos, dates, times. In one, Ethan had his arm draped casually over her shoulders as they stood outside, laughing. In another, they were walking so close their hands brushed. It was all there in black and white. No excuses left to imagine. By the time the third set of pictures came in, I didn't feel shock anymore. Just a cold, steady certainty. Whatever I decided to do next, I was armed, and there was no going back. The final blow came on a Monday night. Jessica had kissed me on the cheek before leaving, saying, "Wish me luck. Big client meeting." I remember nodding, even wishing her well, like some clueless extra in her cover story. Frank's text came at 8:47 p.m., same location as last Thursday. They're here together. This time, the photo wasn't grainy or from across the lot. It was sharp, close enough to see the way she was smiling at him, the way Ethan's hand rested on her waist, like he'd done it 100 times before. They weren't rushing to hide. They weren't even looking around. Just standing there in the neon glow, as casual as two people grabbing coffee. Except they were about to walk into a motel room. I stared at that photo until my chest felt hollow. I'd suspected for weeks, but seeing them, was different. It was the point of no return. I didn't need more evidence. I needed to decide how to use it. Frank handed me the full report the next day, neatly organized, time-stamped, and brutal. Photos, locations, dates, 8 weeks of betrayal, documented down to the minute. I sat alone at my kitchen table in Austin, the blinds half drawn, flipping through page after page. There she was, walking with him, laughing, standing too close in dim parking lots, sliding into his car, entering rooms she would later tell me didn't exist. It was like watching our relationship die in slow motion, each snapshot another shovel of dirt on the grave. I thought I'd be angry, throwing chairs, breaking things, but instead I felt still, too still. Like the storm had already passed, and I was standing in the wreckage, staring at what was left. There was no way to spin this. No, you misunderstood. No, it's not what it looks like. I had the truth, and it was heavy in my hands. The only question now was when and how to put it on the table. I didn't rush it. Confronting Jessica wasn't going to be a heated, spur-of-the-moment explosion. Not now. I'd already burned through the panic and suspicion weeks ago. What I wanted was precision. I spent that night replaying possible conversations in my head. In some, she broke down instantly, confessing everything. In others, she doubled down, spinning lie after lie. I prepared for both. Frank's photos were on my phone, backed up in the cloud, even printed in an envelope I slid into my desk drawer. I wasn't giving her any chance to talk her way out of this. I picked a night I knew she'd be home early, rare lately, and cleared my schedule. No distractions, no friends on standby, just me, her, and the truth sitting between us like a loaded gun. I didn't feel nervous. I felt ready. When that door opened, she wouldn't be walking into our apartment. She'd be walking into the end of us. She came through the door at 6:30 p.m., earlier than she had in weeks. Keys on the counter, shoes off, that practiced "hey babe" rolling off her tongue like nothing was wrong. I didn't answer it. "Sit down," I said, my voice flat. She froze for half a second, then laughed like I was being dramatic. "What's going on?" "We need to talk. Now." We sat across from each other in the living room, the same spot where we'd shared late-night takeout and stupid TV shows. Only now, The air felt heavy, every tick of the wall clock like a countdown. I know you haven't been working late, I started. And I know you've been seeing Ethan outside of work. Her smile twitched. What are you talking about? He's just a friend. I unlocked my phone, swiped once, and turned the screen toward her. There she was, clear as daylight, in the motel parking lot with Ethan's arm around her. Her face went pale, eyes wide, jaw tight, and for the first time in weeks she had nothing to say. After a long, tense pause, she finally spoke. It's not what it looks like. I almost laughed. That line, the cheater's national anthem. It looks like you and a married coworker walking into a motel, I said evenly. Explain that to me. Her eyes darted to the floor, then back to me. We just needed a private place to talk. I raised an eyebrow. So you booked a motel room? With blackout curtains, soundproof walls, and a minibar? Her voice rose, defensive now. It wasn't like that, Ryan. We just kissed a few times, that's all. Nothing more. I shook my head slowly. Do you honestly expect me to believe that? That two grown adults sneaking around to motels just stop at kissing? She bit her lip, tears starting to form. I swear, it wasn't physical beyond that. But I could see it. The panic in her eyes, the way she clung to the lie like it was the last raft on a sinking ship. And I knew we were past the point of saving this. Her voice wavered as she kept repeating it. Just a few kisses, nothing else. But the more she said it, the weaker it sounded. I leaned forward, elbows on my knees. Then why lie about working late? Why hide your phone? Why change your story every time I ask a question? She sniffled, dabbing at her eyes. Because I didn't want to hurt you. I didn't mean for it to happen. That one hit me like static, meaningless noise filling the air. Didn't mean for it to happen. Was just code for I knew exactly what I was doing, but I didn't think I'd get caught. I pressed her again. How long has this been going on? She hesitated, then mumbled, a few months. I almost laughed, because Frank's timeline already had 8 weeks documented. That meant she was still shaving off the truth, even with the evidence in her face. The trust was gone. The honesty was gone. All that was left between us was the wreckage, and I was ready to walk away from it. Just when I thought she'd run out of excuses, she pivoted. I've been feeling so alone lately, she said, her voice trembling. You've been so busy with work. I didn't feel like you were there for me. There it was, the quiet shove of responsibility back onto my shoulders. I leaned back, staring at her. So your solution was to sneak around with Ethan? To lie to me for months? Her gaze dropped. I just connected with him. He understood me. Connected. Understood. All the words people use to dress up betrayal, make it sound poetic instead of rotten. You had other options, Jess, I said. You could have talked to me, asked for therapy, hell, even broken up with me if you weren't happy. But cheating? That's the one choice you don't get to spin into something noble. She wiped her eyes, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. But there was no pity left in me. She'd made her choice. Now it was my turn. I stood up, and she looked at me like she already knew what was coming. Where are you going? She asked, her voice small. I'm packing a bag, I said. I can't stay here. Not after this. Her face crumpled. Please, Ryan, we can work through this. We can go to counseling. I almost laughed, but it came out as a bitter exhale. I'm not paying a stranger to sit in a room and tell me it's healthy to stay with someone who's been sneaking off to motels. That's not happening. I grabbed a duffel from the closet and started tossing in clothes, chargers, whatever I could reach. My hands moved fast, but my mind was calm. Too calm. It felt less like leaving a home, and more like evacuating a fire I'd smelled for weeks. She trailed after me, crying harder now, asking me to just sleep on it. But there was nothing to think about. I'd already made my decision the moment I saw those photos, and there was no turning back. I zipped the duffel and slung it over my shoulder. She stood in the doorway, eyes red, blocking my path like that alone could change my mind. Ryan, please, just stay tonight. We can talk in the morning. I shook my head. The only thing left to talk about is logistics. Who's keeping the apartment? How we're splitting the bills. That's it. Her chin trembled. You're just going to throw away 3 years like this? I met her eyes. You threw it away the second you walked into that motel. For a long moment, we just stared at each other. The hum of the fridge was the only sound in the room. Finally, I stepped past her. My keys felt heavy in my hand as I locked the door behind me. The Texas night air hit my face, warm and thick, carrying the faint smell of barbecue from somewhere down the block. I didn't look back, because there was nothing worth looking back at. Every step toward my truck felt like pulling myself out of quicksand. By the time I turned the engine over, I was already gone. I crashed at my buddy Chris's place that night, tossing my duffel on his couch like I was moving into a safe house. He didn't ask for details, just handed me a cold beer and let the silence do the talking. The next morning, my phone was lit up with missed calls and texts from Jessica, voicemails too. I didn't listen to them. I already knew the script, the apologies, the explanations, the half-truths designed to keep me on the hook. I kept my responses to 0. By day 2, the messages shifted tone, from "please call me" to "we can fix this" to "you're making a mistake." By day 3, she was in full confession mode. That's when I finally read one. "Ethan isn't even talking to me anymore. I think he used me." I set the phone down. There it was, the crash after the high. But I wasn't her safety net. I was the guy she'd gambled and lost. And I wasn't about to be the consolation prize she came crawling back to. On the 4th night, I broke my own rule and picked up her call. She was crying before I even said hello. "Ryan, I made the biggest mistake of my life. I don't even know why I did it. I feel sick about it every day since you left." I stayed quiet, letting her fill the silence. "Ethan told me he was going to leave his wife," she continued, voice breaking. "He said they were practically separated. I thought there was a future there." I finally spoke. "And now?" "He's ghosting me," she said, almost whispering. "Won't return my texts, won't even look at me at work." I leaned back on Chris's couch, staring at the ceiling. "Sounds like you learned who he really is." She sniffled. "I was stupid. I wish I could take it all back." I didn't sugarcoat it. "Yeah, you were. And you can't." There was a pause on the line, heavy, aching. For the first time, I think she realized there was no coming back from this. Not for us. She tried again, her words tumbling over each other. "We can start fresh, counseling, anything you want. I'll prove to you I can change." I closed my eyes, took a slow breath. "Jess, you're asking me to forget months of lying, hiding, and sneaking around. That's not something you can patch over with a few therapy sessions." Her voice cracked. "So, that's it? You're just done?" I opened my eyes, staring at the muted glow of the TV across the room. "I was done the second I saw those photos. The rest was just paperwork." She let out a small, shaky laugh, like she couldn't believe I was serious. "You're really going to let this go?" I shook my head even though she couldn't see it. "No, Jess, you let it go. I'm just stepping away from what's left." The line went quiet except for her uneven breathing. I didn't fill the silence. I'd said everything I needed to say, and in that moment, I felt something I hadn't in weeks: freedom. That night, after hanging up, I sat there replaying everything in my head: the lies, the motel rooms, the way she looked me in the eye and swore nothing happened. And then I thought about Lauren Brooks, Ethan's wife. She had no idea. I found her profile on Facebook easily enough. No mutual friends, no reason for her to recognize my name. Just a smiling woman holding a golden retriever in her profile picture, living in the same city as me, completely unaware of what was going on behind her back. For a while, I just stared at the message box. How do you tell someone their marriage is burning down without sounding like you're trying to start the fire yourself? I kept it short, respectful, direct. "Hi, you don't know me, but I recently discovered that my girlfriend has been having an affair with someone I believe is your husband. I have proof. If you'd like to talk, here's my number." I hit send before I could second guess it, and waited. She didn't text back. She called the very next day. "Hi, this is Lauren," she said, her voice cautious. "You sent me a message yesterday?" "Yeah," I replied. "I know this is probably the last kind of phone call you expected, but I thought you deserved to know." There was a pause. "So you're saying my husband Ethan was involved with your girlfriend?" "I'm saying they were on a first-name basis with a motel loyalty program," I told her. My tone was calm, but my chest was tight. I gave her the timeline, the dates, the locations, the photos Frank had taken. I kept my voice even, factual, letting the evidence speak for itself. She didn't cry, didn't yell, just asked quietly, "Can you send me what you have?" I took down her email and sent the entire package, timestamps, pictures, the works. 10 minutes later, my phone lit up again. This time, her voice was shaking. I knew something was wrong. He told me I was paranoid. He said I had trust issues. And just like that, I knew she'd been living the same slow nightmare I had. Lauren's voice cracked as she kept talking. And this isn't even the first time. There were other women. Texts I found years ago. He swore they were harmless. Promised he'd change. I could hear the anger building beneath her words, the kind that comes from connecting every red flag into one massive banner. "This is the final straw," she said firmly. "Good," I replied. "That's one straw that deserves to break the whole damn camel." For the first time, she let out a short laugh, half sob, half relief. We were two strangers, suddenly bound by the same ugly truth. "I'm sorry you had to be the one to tell me," she said, "but thank you, really." "Same here," I told her. "I wish someone had done it for me sooner." We ended the call on a strange note, not happy, but lighter, like a weight had shifted off both our backs. I didn't know what she'd do next, but I had a feeling Ethan's world was about to collapse as fast as mine had. It didn't take long. A week later, I got a text from an unknown number. "Hope you're happy. You told my wife and now she's leaving me. Was this revenge? You've ruined my life, dude." It was Ethan. I stared at the screen, almost impressed by the lack of self-awareness. This man had detonated 2 relationships and was somehow pointing the finger at me. I typed one line, "It's what you deserve." Then I hit send and blocked his number before he could reply with another chapter of his tragic memoir. Through my buddy Tom Willis, the unofficial newsroom of our friend group, I learned Lauren hadn't wasted any time. She lawyered up, kicked Ethan out, and filed for divorce. Meanwhile, Ethan was unraveling at work. He'd burned through personal days, showing up less and less. When he did, he looked like a ghost in business casual. And the best part? Everyone knew. The whispers in the break room were loud enough to carry down the hall. He'd kept his job, for now, but his reputation was cooked. And there's no severance package for that. News about Jessica came from the same source, Tom, grinning like he was delivering breaking headlines. "She's not taking it well," he told me. After Ethan ghosted her, she tried cornering him at work, more than once. According to Tom, it all boiled over one evening after most people had left the office. Jessica confronted Ethan in a glass-walled conference room, voices raised high enough for the cleaning crew to hear. She was demanding answers, throwing out lines like, "You said you were leaving her for me," while Ethan kept telling her to move on. It turned into full-on corporate theater. 2 coworkers screaming under fluorescent lights while junior analysts live-texted the scene to their group chat. Security eventually escorted them both out. HR got involved the next morning. And just like that, Jessica's career in that office was over. They called it disruptive behavior in the paperwork. But everyone knew it was the scandal that finally did her in. Ethan, with his seniority, got a warning. Jessica got the door. A few days after she was fired, Jessica found one last way to get to me: Facebook. I hadn't blocked her there yet. Rookie mistake. Her message started with a simple "hey," like we were old friends catching up. Then came the real pitch. "I lost everything because of him. He lied to me. Used me. I'm in a dark place. I don't know who to talk to. Can we just talk?" I read it twice. It was the same pattern all over again. Sidestepping her choices, blaming someone else for the fallout, pretending we could rewrite history if I'd just pick up the phone. I typed 2 words. "Screw you." Then I closed the chat. She replied almost instantly, "I'm really sorry for everything. I understand. I just wanted you to know that." I didn't answer. If she wanted closure, she could find it somewhere else. I was done giving her my time, my trust, or even my words. That was the last message I ever got from her. No more calls, no more long, rambling texts, just silence. Through the grapevine, I heard she'd moved back in with her parents, 3 hours away, in a town so small it probably shuts down for lunch. Tom said her old desk at work was cleared out within a day, her nameplate tossed in a box with other HR mistakes. I wasn't celebrating her downfall, not exactly, but I won't lie and say there wasn't a certain poetry to it. She'd gambled everything on a man who wasn't hers, and the house always wins. For me, life in Austin went on. I focused on work, caught up with friends I'd been too distracted to see. Little by little, the apartment stopped feeling like a crime scene in my head. Some days, I didn't think about her at all. And when I did, it was less about what I'd lost, and more about how much worse it could have been if I hadn't walked away when I did. With her gone, I turned my attention to the loose ends, the breakup admin, as Chris called it. We were both still on the lease, but I told her she could either take it over solo or we'd figure out how to break it early. She agreed to cover the next month's rent while we untangled the mess. Thankfully, we'd never merged finances. That made things simpler. Still, I went through every shared account like a locksmith after a break-in. Netflix, Hulu, Spotify, even the dumb joint email we'd used for online orders. Passwords changed. Logins revoked. It wasn't about spite. It was about control. My control. I boxed up the last of her stuff she'd left behind at Chris's. A couple of sweaters, a hair straightener, and those ridiculous throw pillows she loved. I dropped them at a storage unit and texted her the code. You can grab these whenever. Don't contact me unless it's about the lease. She never replied. Good. The less I heard from Jessica Parker, the better I slept at night. Even with her gone, there were nights when the what-ifs tried to creep in. What if I'd confronted her earlier? What if I'd ignored my gut? What if I'd stayed? But then I'd picture it. Her and Ethan in that motel parking lot, the neon buzzing overhead, his arm snug around her waist like it had every right to be there. That image was like a bucket of cold water, snapping me back to reality. The truth was, walking away wasn't just the right choice. It was the only choice. Staying would have meant living with a constant question mark over my head, wondering when the next overtime shift would turn into another betrayal. And I'd seen enough to know that trust, once shattered like that, doesn't come back. So instead of chasing the what-ifs, I focused on the what's next. Life without her. Life without lies. It wasn't easy, but it was clean. And clean was something I hadn't felt in a long, long time. I started saying yes to things again. Dinners with friends, weekend barbecues, even a spur-of-the-moment road trip to San Antonio with Chris and Mike. No explanations needed, no anxious check-ins, no wondering if my phone would light up with another excuse from Jessica. The air felt different, lighter. Work got better, too. I wasn't dragging myself in, weighed down by suspicion and late-night arguments in my head. I was sharper, more present. My boss even noticed. Every so often someone would ask, "So, what happened with you and Jessica?" I'd give them the short version. She cheated. I left. No details, no drama. The people who mattered didn't need the rest, and the people who wanted gossip weren't getting it from me. One night, sitting on Chris's back porch with a cold beer in hand, I realized something. For the first time in months, I wasn't waiting for the other shoe to drop, because there was no one left to drop it, and that was freedom I could feel in my bones. Austin's not a small town, but news travels fast when the story's juicy enough. I started noticing the sideways glances, the half-smiles from people who clearly knew more than they were saying. Tom filled me in one night over wings. "Pretty much everyone at her old office knows the whole saga," he said, smirking. "The motel photos, the blow-up with Ethan, getting walked out by security. It's practically office legend now." I wasn't surprised. In places like that, drama spreads faster than memos. Apparently, Ethan hadn't escaped unscathed either. He still had his job, but his reputation was toast. Clients were requesting to work with other reps. Coworkers avoided him in the break room. Someone even started calling him room service behind his back. It was poetic in its own petty way, the fallout hitting them where it hurt most, without me having to lift a finger. I didn't revel in it, much. But I won't lie, hearing it felt like a small, quiet win. Not revenge, just balance. It happened on a Sunday afternoon at the H-E-B on South Congress. I was grabbing groceries when I spotted a familiar figure in the produce section. Ethan. He looked smaller somehow. Shoulders slumped, hair unkempt, eyes dull like he hadn't slept in weeks. He was holding a basket with nothing but a frozen pizza and a six-pack, staring at the apples like they might bite him first. For a moment, our eyes met. Recognition flickered, followed by that mix of shame and defiance people get when they're caught in their own mess. He didn't say a word. Neither did I. I just gave a slow nod, the kind that says I know exactly who you are and what you've done, and walked past him toward the checkout. No scene, no confrontation. The silence said enough. By the time I was in my truck, I realized something. Seeing him like that didn't bring the satisfaction I thought it might. It just confirmed what I already knew. He was living in the wreckage he built. Driving home from that run-in with Ethan, I realized how far I'd come from the guy who first called Frank Dawson. Back then, every thought, every choice was wrapped up in Jessica. What she was doing, what she was hiding, what I might find if I dug deep enough. Now, she was just a closed chapter. I passed by the old apartment building on my way downtown and didn't even feel the urge to look up at our old balcony. That place wasn't ours anymore. It was just another address in Austin. Chris asked me later if I'd ever consider talking to her again just to clear the air. I shook my head. There's nothing left to clear. The air's clean now. That was the truth. No lingering questions. No need for one last conversation to get closure. I'd gotten my closure the moment I walked out with my duffel bag and didn't look back. The past was staying exactly where it belonged, behind me. A few weeks later, Tom sent me a photo that made me pause. Jessica, standing outside what looked like a strip mall cafe in a tiny Texas town. No makeup, hair pulled back, wearing a faded hoodie. She's back living with her folks, Tom's text read. Heard she's looking for work in a totally different field. No one in her old industry will touch her. It made sense. Austin's professional circles can be small, and gossip moves faster than resumes, especially when the gossip comes with timestamps and neon-lit motel backdrops. I didn't feel smug. I didn't feel pity either. Mostly I felt nothing. She'd made her choices. The consequences weren't mine to carry. I just hoped, for her own sake, she'd figure out how to live without burning down the next house she walked into. But whether she did or didn't, that was no longer my concern. By then, the only connection Jessica and I still had was the lease. And even that was nearly over. She'd agreed to take it on alone for the last month before moving out. Once my name was officially off the paperwork, there'd be nothing tying us together. I met the landlord one afternoon to sign the release forms. Quick, easy, no drama. As I slid the pen across the desk, I felt something unclench in my chest, like the final thread had been cut. Back at Chris's place, I went through my phone one last time, deleted her number, blocked her on the 1 or 2 apps I'd missed before, cleared out old photos, not because I needed to, but because I didn't want even digital shadows lingering. It was strange. I'd expected the end to feel like a big moment, but it didn't. It was quiet, clean, like sweeping the last bit of dust out the door before closing it for good. And that, I realized, was exactly how I wanted it. With everything finally cut clean, I stopped thinking about Jessica and Ethan as characters in my story. They were just background noise now, static fading into the distance. I filled my time with things that actually mattered. Long runs along Lady Bird Lake, grabbing brisket with Chris and Mike at Terry Black's, saying yes to last-minute road trips instead of making excuses. Some nights I'd sit out on the patio with a beer, the Austin skyline glowing in the distance, and realize I wasn't replaying old conversations in my head anymore. I wasn't wondering where she was or who she was with. I was just here, living in the present. It struck me how much energy I'd wasted trying to hold together something that was already broken. The moment I let go, space opened up for everything else. Friends, work, peace. And for the first time in a long time, the future didn't feel uncertain. It felt wide open. Looking back now, I don't see the breakup as the worst thing that ever happened to me. I see it as the moment my life got an overdue reset. Sure, it hurt. Sure, it stripped away years of trust in a single blow. But it also stripped away the lies, the constant second-guessing, the quiet erosion of who I was. I learned that sometimes the cleanest break is the kind you don't tape back together, that protecting your peace is worth more than protecting your pride, and that once you have proof someone will betray you, you don't need to wait around for them to do it twice. Jessica made her choice. Ethan made his, and I made mine, to walk away and never look back. If you've ever been in my shoes, you know the weight of that decision. If you haven't, I hope you never have to feel it. But if that day comes, choose yourself. Because no matter how much you think you're losing, the truth is, you're making room for something better. What about you? Would you stay or walk away?